All right, here we go. My name is Travis Neville. This is the Travis Neville Podcast, and I had an excellent opportunity to meet with Sven Erlandson. He runs a counseling business called Badass Counseling. You can go to his website. It's badasscounseling.com, kick-ass website name. Anyway, he wrote a book called There's a Hole in My Love Cup. He's actually got 6 books out there. They're all very good, from what I understand. I only read the big one, There's a Hole in My Love Cup book, because that was his bestseller. Awesome information there, really good shit. We talk a lot about it when I got to meet with him. But I drove to New York City from Michigan to meet this guy and sit down with him. It was so gracious of him to offer to do that, to meet me in person, which we did. So I recorded our conversation, it was awesome. So here it is, my conversation with Sven Erlandson from Badass Counseling. Hope you guys enjoy. Hi guys, I don't spend a whole lot of time on counseling. Right. Other than my friends. Sure. Nice. This kind of thing. It's important. But I always say this thing, that hey, the meant to be part, I don't mean to tell you that you're wrong.
Oh, that's all right.
I
got a girlfriend. She tells me that all the time.
Yeah, that's how it works. I think that what that does is undermines your own, decision making. I always say, man, the good things in your life, you put them there. Mm-hmm. The bad things in your life, you put those there too. Mm-hmm. So you got to take responsibility for both of them. Mm-hmm. Anyway, the meant to be thing. I did a whole podcast on just that.
Well, let's talk about that. So let's just play the tennis. Let's just hit the ball back and forth a little bit here. For me, meant to be, of course, and that's a loose phrase. So that it almost implies. You got to have some sort of belief in God, otherwise meant by whom, right? And I don't, so we're setting that aside. What I'm saying by that is, in retrospect, a great author that I love, I believe it was James Hillman who said it. He said, we can only connect the dots in retrospect, looking backwards. And that's the simple way of saying it, even though a lot of times, unfortunately, it's not, but if that had happened, perhaps this wouldn't have happened. If I had that, what would have happened? What trajectory would my life have taken as a writer of coffee table book for Starbucks? And who knows what, and could have gone a great direction. But the point is, what I got out of that, and this is really where I'm going, is 2 things. We can't see how it's all going to stitch together. For me to go, global on TikTok, there's no way I could have seen that when I started writing my first book 25, 30 years ago. Mm-hmm. I couldn't have seen that. Why? TikTok only came in existence 5 years ago. Social media only came in existence roughly 10, 15 years ago. Fucking personal computing wasn't even in existence when I was writing that first fucking book. I wrote that fucking thing by hand.
You really did? No shit.
Most of it. Well, no, I'm not a typewriter.
College for me was word processing.
Well, yeah, okay. And see, we didn't. It didn't exist. I'm sure it existed, don't get me wrong. I didn't fucking have a computer. Anyway, it was towards the end of my first book that I finally put it all into a computer and figured out how to do it, whatever. So the point is, I couldn't have seen.
Right.
And I actually believe in very much, do I believe there's a God floating around in space somewhere? No. Do I believe that there are forces that science hasn't explained? Yes. Yes, I do. Sure. And so what I mean by that is, so when I say it wasn't meant to be, I'm always teaching and counseling people that the third step in sort of the spiritual process, just spirit in terms of communion, conversation with your own self. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't mean it's spiritual, fucking weird.
Frame it as you will.
Okay. But the first step is having the solitude to hear your own inner voice, who I really am, not just the shit that's running in my head or I think I really want, but to feel who I really am. The second step is to have the courage to heed it. And very often, some people get stuck on the first one. They don't want to slow down because all the shit from their past will overwhelm them. All that shit they've been running.
They can't deal with it.
It's scared to deal with it. Oh, absolutely. And understandably scared to deal with it. Fear it'll overwhelm me, fear that, it's just too much and it'd hurt too much and so forth. So some people get stuck on that step. Some people get stuck on this step because Sven, I know in my soul, I know who I am, but I'm terrified to put it out there. on the outside
Well, that's
of me.
fear of rejection.
Well, yeah, it's that I know, because in what I talk about in my book is the fear of the known is bigger than the fear of the unknown. I believe it kills more lives than even fear of death. That it's the fear of the known, that if I put out there who I really am, I know exactly what my father will say, or I know exactly what my mother will say, or my brother, or society.
Those power sources.
As those external power sources. But the third step is a master level step. And that's where this is the really tricky one. And that is, I quote the 38 Special song from the late 70s, hold on loosely. Hold on loosely. And that's the hard part. See, when we exercise so much will.
That's Pittsburgh, by the way.
What's that?
That's where I was listening to that party.
Oh, no shit.
Driving over.
Hey, that's a good song to go through Pittsburgh.
I agree.
Little 38 Special. I love it. I love Pittsburgh.
Classic.
Gorgeous town. Gorgeous town. Yeah, good music for Pittsburgh. But it's the simultaneously have that dream and allow for things to influence it and change it and bend it and infuse it with more life that I can't control. Very often when we're exerting our will on life, we're holding on too tightly. And it's a silly little example, but if you put water in your hands, then try to hold it tightly, it goes and it squirts out your hands.
So that's where
and it kills dreams. Go ahead.
Of course it does. Of course it does. Where you're coming from with the, meant to be thing. You are leaving leeway for all these forces that you can't control.
Precisely. And so
I don't like believing that.
That's okay.
But I'm going to open my mind to it. But I like to believe that pretty damn much everything is up to me.
I think
I like that. I like that idea. It makes me feel real solid.
That's all right.
But I'm enjoying opening my mind to what you're talking about.
Everybody's different. Everybody's different.
Indeed, they are.
Yes.
Yeah. So my friend Erin, I got to do this before I forget. She's the one who said you should check this guy out. I wrote my first book 2 years ago, and I've been doing my podcast for about a year. Just wrote my second one. I sent it to you.
Congrats, man.
Thanks, man.
And I went through it. I love what you're doing.
Well, you mentioned the 38 Special thing.
Yeah.
And I had already written that sucker and put musical accompaniment in there. And then Aaron's like, Sven does fucking music on every one of his chapters. He's like, motherfucker! I thought I had that locked down. This fucker already did it. God damn it! Like, I'm so pissed about that. But she's a huge fan of yours.
Well, thank you, Erin.
Yeah.
Erin and E-R-I-N.
E-R-I-N.
Erin, thank you for introducing me to this character. This is great. Appreciate the shout out.
Yeah, she's a lot of fun. But
that's great.
Yeah, that whole idea, like I said, of controlling what you can control. I don't think that you would probably never tell anybody not to do that. Of course, control the things you control. Mm-hmm. But I do like that idea. The way that you framed it with social media, TikTok, shit doesn't even exist yet.
Yeah, that's it.
So the shit that's going to change your life in 5 years, that doesn't exist yet either. A lot of it. The woman I haven't met, the house I haven't bought.
Exactly. Think about this. So my brother John, all my siblings, very smart and gracious people, good, salty Swedes from Minnesota. Mm-hmm. And my brother John, his kids wanted to spend all their time growing up in the basement playing computer games. And he let them. He also, but they were, he socialized with them, and he's the type guy, he's like, you can do anything around his house. He built his own deck with that expensive wood from Brazil, and all, no screws show from up above. He unscrewed and put in his own pilings, all this shit. But so John's smart, but he let him. They also had to do taekwondo and all that, but he let them. And remember, back in those days, most parents were saying to their kids, get outside and play. And also, that computer shit, you'll never get a job doing that.
Yeah, that's true. Because they didn't understand.
They didn't understand, because you can't see into the future. Yeah. And look, those are the smart kids. My oldest kid started his oldest kid did this, the other one this, that, blah, blah, blah.
Tell me about your kids, if you're done with
no, for sure. My son, he and his fiance just bought a house down in the Raleigh area. Yep. No, actually, I'm going to his bachelor party in Houston next week. Who invites their old man?
Well, you must have a pretty good relationship.
No, I don't know. I know. Again, poor judgment, or he'd been drinking heavily that day, or maybe I don't know. Maybe
his fiance said, "You can need somebody."
You got to take your old man. Because I'm also performing the ceremony for his wedding. You got to take your old man, because I know you won't, do anything bad when he's around. I don't know what it is. No, it's he had wanted it in Houston because that was one of the ballparks that he hasn't been in yet, and we're going to go to a baseball game, spring training or something in Houston, and but then it didn't work out, so we're doing it in Houston anyway. But no, he's in the Raleigh area, and his fiance is going to vet school down there to be a veterinarian, and he actually, his goal, his dream, some kids, it's computers, whatever, he grew up in sports. I played a lot, he played as well, but he was 10 times more of a fanatic. Went to the #1 sports high school in Minnesota, more state championships over the decades. They went to Edina, even though I grew up blue collar. And the point is, he wanted to spend his life in sports. I had told my kids when they were like 7 or 8, I said, if you want to go to college, just get the hell out of Minnesota. You can stay here. I know you want to spend the rest of your life here. That's great. Just get away because you can redefine yourself.
Okay.
You can redefine it. Nobody knows you if you go to school.
Mystique of the new guy.
Exactly. And I told him to play that one up. You wait till because I'd say Atlanta is completely different from Phoenix, which is completely okay. And so my son was considering Boston, Ohio State, and LSU. He ended up choosing LSU. Didn't know one single person in the entire state of Louisiana. He goes, he's crying as every college kid does. The first month or two. Made friends. By the time he graduated, he said, "Pop, I'm never leaving Louisiana. I love it down here. It's not all the uptight Swedes. The people are the best." And he said, "Unless I get my dream job." And it wasn't a dream job. It was a dream company. Well, so he starts working at a sporting goods store because all he knew was he wanted to be in sports. All he knew he couldn't play. He had given it up by the time. He didn't play at LSU, but he knew he wanted to be on sports. Well, there's a million jobs in sports.
Yep.
A million jobs.
All different levels.
And he ended up, 9 months later, I ended up getting a text, "Pop, I got it." He had gotten a job in sales for the Minnesota Twins. Moves back up to Minnesota, spends 4 years there, does over $1 million in individual ticket sales, was with them through their absolute worst year, and the next year is when they had a 100-win season, blah, blah, blah. And now he works for Duke University. And so he's got a fucking resume, and it's like, holy shit, he's 30 years old. Yeah, he's a killer, but he's the nicest guy in the whole world. He's the nicest guy in the whole world.
Speaking of that, killer and a nice guy, you Jordan Peterson fan at all?
I know his stuff, I just don't have time.
Okay.
So, go ahead.
Well, he's just got this concept, and I just posted something on social media about it. The last podcast I did was with this girl called Lexi Turner. She was awesome. She talks a lot about gender roles, right? She's talking about this Jordan Peterson idea that you should be a monster, an absolute savage, who's awesome at controlling it. I think that's a big definition of what a man should be. And a lot of my work is focused on that. Like I talk about, I guess your son's past that age, but there's this window, 16 to 26, they call it. And the guys just kind of weren't taught to be guys. And I think that's one of the concepts. You said you probably didn't even realize what you were saying. That this is part of the definition of men that you and I were raised with.
Sure.
And sadly boys aren't.
And I was when I was an NCAA strength coach. I
want to hear about that.
Yeah,
Where were you?
I was at Osborne College in Minneapolis,
okay.
And we ended up being the weakest school in the conference to being the strongest school. I was just strength. We did some conditioning, but I'm strength guy. And what's that?
How long did it take you to get up to that status?
About 6 months.
6 fucking months, dude? I thought you were going to tell me 4 years.
No.
4 years would have been pretty damn
I know. If I had to stay in strength training for 4 years, I'd blow my brains out. I enjoy it. I love it, but it's just like, I had my first workout when I was 11. I'm 54. I've spent 43 years in gyms. I was a former competitive lifter.
I also heard you say that you will go once a week and once for 5 fucking hours.
Yeah, well, it's once every 5 days or 6 days. It's not. It's usually about once every 6 days because I'm just getting a little older and the recovery time takes a little longer. But I'm sick of gyms, and so I get totally jacked on like 2 giant cups of coffee, and I'll bring like 3 or 4 monsters with me.
Really?
Oh, absolutely. And I just bang out, 4 to 5 hours. Some days I'll wuss out and do like 3.5, whatever. And it's heavy and it's hard.
Are you eating halfway? Shit, man, I'd get hungry. I get tired driving.
No, I just eat. But I'll have a protein shake with my creatine in it that I'll drink midway through, whatever. But it's just lots of liquids. But anyway, what the hell was I talking about? Oh, when I was a strength coach. One of the things I used to tell my athletes, and if you ever want an interesting read, just the opening story of my book, Badass Jesus, and it has nothing really to do with Jesus. Yeah, that's the one, and that's more a spirituality book, and most people shy away from Jesus shit, which fine, I don't care. But the point is, I tell a story about the first day my lifters would come into the weight room. I don't want to tell that now, but the point is simply this: I would tell my kids, and males or females too, just as tough, and they're killers. I had killers. And I said, how in your dining room you can have like a light switch and it's either on or off, or some dining rooms have the dimmer switch. Most of you guys, most of you young women, you have an on-off switch with your energy. It's either off or on. And with young men, with testosterone, it's always on. They're just always, everything's a fight, everything's intense, everything. They don't have control of themselves. And that means, and it's not just, control's kind of a shitty word used for it, but they don't have the ability to not be tough. The people I respect the most are the ones that are just soft and squishy all the time. But it's in there. Yeah. That other thing is in there. My girlfriend, for instance, Karen, grew up in the Bronx. All right?
Sicilian, you said.
Yep, and the other half is Positano. And Positano where her father's from, a small city in Italy as well.
Okay.
One of the most beautiful cities in the world.
So still
It's on a
Italian
cliff.
as fuck, both sides.
Both sides, right.
Okay.
And grew up in the Bronx, and she ended up starting a few companies, but then she started one about approaching 30 years ago, 25, 27 years ago, that ended up, she built, president, primary shareholder since day one, and she built it into an $80 million company in Manhattan, 2,500 employees globally.
Yes.
Here's the punchline. She not only doesn't have a college degree, she didn't graduate from high school.
Oh, you talked about her.
Yeah, she's a,
And you say that about something.
and to this day, we've been together 8 years. I've never seen her in a suit. She goes to fucking work in her yoga pants.
You were talking about one of your clients. Maybe it wasn't her.
Well, okay, and so just to put to finish this story,
Yes.
she grew up in the Bronx in the '60s, in the '70s. She's tough as hell. She and her sister, but they're killers.
Yeah.
You'd never know it if you met her. And she's, they've had all this success. You'd never know it. She's tough as nails, and she can be if she needs to be. She's soft and squishy. She's the gentlest person. And I did a TikTok way in the very beginning, a year ago, when I first started. Are you a Cadbury and egg? Are you a Cadbury egg or are you a cat? And a cat, like a Cadbury egg or a kitten even. A Cadbury egg is tough on the outside and it's gooey on the inside.
Sure.
And most people who are tough on the outside are being tough because
they're covered up.
They're covered up and they're afraid of all their squishy, ugly stuff on the inside. But then there are these other people who are soft on the outside, and they'll be loving and soft all you want. They can go fucking cat on you.
Yeah.
They can if they need to. But if you're always playing that card, like guys that are always playing that card, or always, exactly. And it's just like, come on, you're so transparent. You're not tough. And this is why I named my business Badass Counseling. And because for me, a badass isn't, I go around, I'm tough all the time. It's just the opposite. If you're really a badass and you're being tough all the time, you're being tough all the time because society says men should be tough all the time, or be a tough broad or whatever. It's like, okay, so you're not even dictating your own life.
It's coming from the outside.
Exactly. So if you're really a badass, you just express whatever you feel in any given moment. You are literally, the Latin is causa sui. You are self-generating. You're doing it yourself. Whatever you feel, so if I cry all the fucking time. All the fucking time. And when the newborn of our niece, when little Landon was over last night here, and we're snuggling him and eating his cheeks and stuff, I fucking do that shit. It's just
There's
like,
nothing wrong with that shit.
No, exactly, and being soft and being gentle. Because otherwise you're just a one-trick pony and you're so fucking transparent. That's not being a man. That's just, actually what that is, that's being afraid.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, so anyway, that's sort of where I stand on that. I got a bit off track, but I was teaching these athletes to learn how to dial it down, dial it up, to learn how to, and that requires getting out all the pain and the fears and bullshit beliefs they were taught about themselves in the years growing up. So they've got this maligned version of what being a woman is or what being a man is. And to me,
listening out here instead of here.
Right. And the truth is, an authentic self is soft, is firm, it's sad, it's happy, it's disgusted, it's betrayed, it's all these different feelings, and allowing yourself to feel them. Because when you cut that shit up, that's the shit that's going to undermine your life when you're 35, when you're 45, when you're 62.
Yeah, when you quit being just a product of your parents.
Well, exactly.
You start looking at yourself going, whoa, I wasted some time here.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can really do some damage.
And to put a finer point on that, and what I do, and I have a lot of clients. I just had one last night, a woman I see every week for about 3 hours, and extraordinarily successful woman. And she's been talking about now, she's in her 50s, and she's been talking about how, I feel like I wasted those years. I was hiding my real self. And in corporate America, as a woman, you hide your real self. And in my life and in my marriages and so forth. And so she feels like it's wasted, but it's not wasted. And the way it becomes unwasted is when we tap it, when we say, what are the gems of wisdom inside that pain, inside what I call my own lost time that I've wasted? What are the gems of wisdom? What are the cascading waterfalls of insight?
As a result of that.
Why was that sent for my betterment? How was that actually a fucking blessing? Because that turns it upside down, because there are always gems of wisdom inside the pain. But we want to run from that pain. No one wants to look inside their pain. But that's where and that's right. Pain is such a brilliant teacher.
Yeah, I think you got to hit it head on. I talk about this all the time. The first chapter of my first book is called Beat Fear. Whatever it is that you're afraid of, hit it head on. I mean, I don't want to go to bed thinking that I didn't go ask that girl for her phone number. That's a small example. But you have examples of them all throughout your whole life.
Right.
There's things that you do, habits that you have that fucking hit them head on.
Right.
I mean, that's how you beat them. And then they get very small very quickly.
Agreed.
Because I think those fears are, like you're talking about, that fake vocabulary A, tough on the outside,
Right.
but soft on the inside. That's what you're afraid. You're afraid of that.
Right.
So as soon as you stare it down, it turns into soft.
Well, and it is scary, and especially the stuff from my childhood. There's nothing worse. There are very, 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 very few things worse than the pain and the fears and the bullshit beliefs we're taught about ourselves that most people can't even see, which is why I wrote my book, to help people begin to identify what those are and how to pull those out. But this is monstrous stuff. This is the biggest stuff of your life. This is, in the words of Joseph Campbell, my favorite author, the cave you most fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. And on that notion, I love that you brought that up, and I want to go back to that little example you gave on the notion of, you were talking about beating fear, which I think is fantastic, and this is the big one, and it requires time and dedication to go into your stuff from your past. So then applying that, even in small fears, such as going and asking a girl out. You know what? I used to be that guy. You know, so much anxiety, and I'm sure she's going to reject me. And what most women don't understand when they say, oh, be a man, grow a pair, you know, come ask me out. My response is, really? And do you know that most guys have been asking girls out since they were like 12? And for every yes they got 12 fucking no's.
Well,
so I'm not going to go up to the prettiest girl, because you know she's going to say no. Fuck that.
You know, this is that guidance I give my football players. Hey, man,
what's that?
You might get shot down 9 out of 10 times. Still got to live one.
That's true. That's true. And I like that. No, I like that. So, but what I changed to, for me personally, this is just me, I'm not selling this for anybody else, except my clients. I'll ram it down their fucking throats. But it's this. If I have to force myself to do something, not me. I'm forcing.
Give me an example on that.
All right, asking the girl out. Okay. That is the perfect example to me. So, let's say I'd be at a Starbucks. I would write my books oftentimes. Sometimes I'd go to Starbucks, get lit, and just fucking, with caffeine and just do it. Sometimes I'd write in solitude at 4 a.m. at home.
Do you not drink? You drink whiskey, right?
Oh, yeah. Why, are you thirsty?
Keep going.
If I didn't have a client later, I'd offer you one.
Don't tell me.
I'd offer you one.
Anyway, you go up to this girl.
No, and so in the past, I'd like, I really want to, and I'd let it go, or I wouldn't do it, and I'd wuss out, or the occasional time. I never was the guy who had the balls to walk up to a pretty girl and ask her out. Never. Or rare when I do that. And what I came to in my own self was realizing I'm forcing it. Sure, I want to ask her out, but what if I didn't? What would happen if I didn't ask her out? Could I trust what we were talking about earlier, the universe, for lack of a better word?
Sure. Factors I can't control.
Factors I can't control. Could I trust that if I let this one go, there'll be another one that'll cross my path, and it'll be effortless.
3-point-something billion.
Well, but apart from and more than just that someone crossed my path, it was the last little piece, wherein it will be effortless. Is it possible that effortlessness exists? Is it possible that if I just let it go, the right one will just cross my path?
It's one of the most beautiful things that you talk about, dude. In your book, you specifically say that when you finally get to where you're your authentic self, these people will walk into your life. These opportunities will appear. These things happen. And I would love to have faith in that. It's a beautiful, beautiful concept. And I keep thinking about it since I heard you say it. But I think that's what you're saying.
Yes, it is. But it's not, what I would tweak in what you said is, you don't even have to have faith in it. Because the first three, that's the third step. The more you have the courage to be, say, do, and become who you really are inside, on the outside, to be, say, do, and become out here, who I am here. So you have an integrated life. There's no longer a seam, like the seam on your inside life, then there's a seam, and then they're stitched together, and they don't. No, it's integrated. Okay.
You've got your facade,
right. And so the first step, the first thing that happens, the more you have the courage to do it, is you start to lose people. And that's why you start to lose people who maybe you thought would be with forever, your best friend, or a father, or a brother, or whatever, or your favorite cousin, people who want you to keep being who you always were. And see, that's really the tricky step, is that opening part. I know if I put it out there, I know how they're going to respond. And I'm terrified of losing them, or I'm terrified of their criticism, because I've been eating their shit since I was a kid, and it hurts so much, I'll keep it inside, thank you very much. But when you push through that, you're going to lose some people. Not everyone, but you're going to lose some people. But the next thing that happens is you start to effortlessly attract people. Guaranteed, absolutely, unequivocally. You want to know why? The human animal is naturally drawn to clean energy. People who have clean energy, and not just happy and bubbly, but they just have a different vibe.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. That when somebody has a facade that isn't exactly who they are, you can pick up on it.
You can pick up on it.
There's a part,
and you may not even know you're picking up on it.
It's not here.
You just sense it.
Some about them doesn't seem off.
And even if they're a good person, otherwise it's just whatever. So it's not even about being good. It's just being authentic. Yeah. That we are naturally drawn to authenticity. So what happens is the second piece is you start to effortlessly attract people who love who you're being, who say, if you went back to being who you always were, I wouldn't be the least bit interested. Or who say, I love that you don't even know who you're becoming. I love that you have the courage to become. And so the third step then is shit starts to fall out of the sky. And I mean good shit. And the thing is, so many people would say, well, I want the shit to magically fall out of the sky. And what I tell them is you don't even have to have faith in that. Just test it in the first two steps and see if you feel better. Test putting yourself out there, even if you're losing people.
Well, you're going to stop immediately having to do the work of being a thing you're not.
Well, and
that's fucking work, dude.
It is work, but it's also, and I literally have a post in my queue on my phone that's due to go up. I have a couple of them that I get a bunch done, and then I put them up once every couple of days. I have one queued up on exactly this, the notion of living two selves. And the new me, sort of, maybe I'm that way in my work, but in my personal life, I'm still old self. And it is work to do that, because if I'm being old self, you don't want to put your real self out there, which means you're not having good connections and relationships and so forth. But it's also safe. Old self is safe, because I've always been it. I know how to do it. I can rest in it, even though I want to be new self. And so it's an interesting, it's an interesting dichotomy, but people long, at the very least, what pushes people out of being old self and to begin to express and put out there who they really are, what pushes them to do it is the pain of not doing it. You hear about artists who say, I got to express myself, I got to get it out. It aches at an artist to not express himself. Exactly. At the Newport Folk Festival, when he changed from acoustic to fucking, electric. Absolutely. People hated him for it and so forth. But he just had to keep expressing himself. Paul Simon, another great example, musical artist. I mean, he was Simon and Garfunkel. He and art, but then he morphed and did all this other shit, and he just let himself go where he needed to go.
Kind of a punchline at this point, like, Great job on the background vocals, but what'd you do?
Exactly. but you can't have Simon Garfunkel without his harmonic.
Without the damn.
Yeah, and that big afro.
Fan,
no, I grew up spinning their greatest hits records, so I totally get that. Anyway, so the point is yes, the shit will fall out of the sky, but the reason you're doing it, that's just like that's icing. The reason you're doing it is because I can't keep it anymore. I'm sick of being not me. Yeah. And the more you begin to do it, it feels good. And we begin to get lighter. Yes, we lose some people, but we realize how trapped we were by those very people that we're losing, because they wanted me to keep being that for their own reason.
Yeah, you teach people how to treat you right, and other people kind of teach you how to be around them. There's things that you can do, and you can, like you said, when you're talking to somebody in person, you can watch their body language. Oh, they didn't like that, so you kind of create a different little tweak of your persona.
Absolutely.
That fits with that person.
Absolutely, and that's not badass. That's me so needing their approval. That's me so wanting them that I'm going to change me, engage in fucking gymnastics to bend and contort to make you fucking like me. Well, that's not badass. That's and I hate to use this word, but it's weak. It's like, come on, just be you. Just have the courage to be you. So back to the example of asking a woman out. So then for me, it's just like, fuck, I'm forcing it. The reason I'm having all this anxiety, should I ask her out? I want to ask her out, should I ask her out? Is I'm forcing it. I believe in flow. We talk about flow, but do you really fucking believe in it?
You talk about flow, and were you talking about I don't know how to say his name, it's a real fucking Mikhail of the shit Sesnikov or some shit. There's a book called Flow.
Oh yeah, that guy.
Yeah, is that the version you're talking about?
No, I'm just talking about Idiot Sven version. And that's just like honestly where it boils down to, the only action you're taking is inspired action. Okay. Inspired action.
As you're saying this, I'm trying to come up with examples.
Where it feels good. Where it feels good, and I'm excited to do it. And if it's coming from a place of anxiety, it's not you. If it's coming from a place of calm, it's you. If it's coming from a place of anxiety, and one author, they're kind of, it's kind of new agey, and I grew up and came of age in the 80s and so forth, so I allow room for the new agey stuff, but god damn, it's a good line. Esther Hicks, she writes in one of her books, she writes, nothing you want is upstream. Everything you want is downstream. Lift your oars. And the thing is, I don't know if you've ever done, rapids and rivers and shit like that.
But nothing.
Yeah, okay.
It was in Alaska once.
But there are times you're always going with the stream. You're always going downstream. Yeah. But there are times when you want to fucking paddle because that fucking rock is right there and so on. So it doesn't, just because you're going with the flow, just because you're going downstream, doesn't mean you're not taking action. But it's inspired action. It's when it comes from a place of I'm excited, this feels good, versus, so in the case of Karen, my girlfriend, building an $80 million company. And as we talk about this stuff, imagine how, and she's the ultimate salesperson, but she's just people lover, and people are loyal to her, Karen and so forth. But imagine
part of why she's successful, probably a big part.
Well, absolutely, and she wins their trust and so forth. And but part of the reason what we do is we talk about this shit all the time. We have deep conversations. And she said to me, Sven, you know, it's your concept, Sven, of flow and so forth. She said that it's really helped me to see, and she's taught me more than I've ever taught her, but she said it's taught me to see how much of my career was built on forcing it. You think when you're an entrepreneur, when you're building a company, when you're a president of 2,500 people whose fucking school lunch of their kid depends on you, you think more action is always better. And if you're not moving, you think, oh fuck,
I'm letting these people down.
That's
I
right.
can see the pressure.
Oh, absolutely. And so, but that's not inspired action. Inspired action, and as we age and grow and hopefully learn and become wiser, whether it's in business or whatever our career is, we learn that oftentimes when we force shit, we break shit. Oftentimes when we're staying busy, it's because we're afraid of being calm. It's not because busy is better for the company or better in raising my kids or whatever.
You feel guilty about being calm.
You feel guilty about being calm, absolutely. And
And
if you were socialized that way growing up by your parents, hey, what the fuck you doing on the couch, kid? Go fucking blah, blah, blah. It's like you think resting is bad when resting is the fucking nectar of life. And what that requires, it requires the ability to, again, we're back to listening to your own energy. And so what if your own energy is saying rest? At what point do you trust your own energy? At what point do you admit that my constantly running the motor, like those kids I was talking about in the dimmer switch, you know,
right.
If I'm just constantly running my motor, I run myself down, I make bad fucking decisions. I don't sleep well, and that leads to breakdown of everything.
So you sharpen the saw, right? So Stephen Covey thing, right?
Well, what I say is you fucking learn to stop. Solitude. To be alone with your own self. In so many fucking rehab programs, you know what one of the first things they have to learn? Go sit by yourself. Go sit on that park bench for 3 hours. No phone.
I'm out.
And all of a sudden, all their fucking shit comes up.
I'll run into it myself, and it's very simply, I feel like I should be making more progress. I don't have a family that would be taking my time. Of course, I'm sure I'd love doing that, but you know, if a day goes by and I just did some social media and did some writing and maybe pushed my business a little bit, I'm like, fuck, man, I should be doing more, but I also got to be good at relaxing.
Right.
I mean, what the hell are you doing all this work for? If it isn't to be able to sit back and enjoy it and feel good about it.
And also, right, exactly, absolutely. And it's also the trust. It's you're doing the social media and you're doing your podcast and you're doing all of these things because they feel right to you. You're inspired. Exactly. You want to do it. So you're doing it for the love of the work. I wrote 5 fucking books and they didn't sell shit. Nobody writes 5 books that don't sell. Why would you ever do that?
Unless after 2 at most.
Right, at most. But I'm not real bright, right? Dumb Swede. And but I kept it. Why? Because I had shit I wanted to say. I was doing it for me. Yes, I wanted success, but the beauty of it, the beauty of never getting the success, was you give up on wanting the success.
And also you develop some pretty good habits too. Oh, you know what I mean? You're like, well, this is just what I do now.
But for me, mostly it's that I just let go. It's just like, so who am I? And this is why I ask that question. You know, so many motivational speakers or writers will say, well, what would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? But I ask a very different question. What would you do even if you knew there was a very high likelihood you would fail? Because in the first scenario, you're doing it, are you doing it for the work or for the success? You know, if you win that Oscar award, I'm finally at the top of the game.
Yeah. So I didn't fully understand that concept when you were talking about
it.
So I'm glad you bring it up now.
Yes, and it's simply this. If you're doing it, what would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? In other words, you know you're guaranteed success.
Yeah, you do. I want
to be an astronaut.
Yeah.
I want to be an actor and win the Oscar award. But then what? So are you doing it because you want to act, or are you doing it because you want the success? See, in that first scenario, assuming you're guaranteed success, what would you do? And I'm saying, what would you do if you weren't guaranteed success? What would you do for the love of the work itself?
What is so good that you do it no matter what?
For you. You do it for you.
Okay,
that it gratifies your own soul. Yeah. That you're doing it sheerly to gratify my own soul. Now, you got to pay bills, you know, fine, get on fucking site. You know how many years I fucking waited tables? Yeah. Or was a bartender while I was starting a church in fucking Ohio, and I was working in Cincinnati and fucking,
you've been all over the place, man.
Yeah, I just went. Sometimes it's following a girl. Sometimes it's I just want to go live there or whatever.
When you look back on that, are you perfectly comfortable with it? Are you like, I love it that I bounced all over maybe 4 years?
Everybody's different. And you know, and this relates to what you were saying a minute ago about feeling at times, well, shit, you know, I'm missing out on the normal life. I don't have a family or whatever. Karen, my girlfriend, she often says, you know, Sven, I wanted to have what my parents had. I wanted to have, you know, that life, and your parents had, Sven, that lifelong together and family and kids and all that. She says, but when I look back, I realized that if I had that, I would have missed out on all these amazing men that I've had the opportunity to learn from. Her words. And I mean, her last major relationship before me, the guy's a professor at Columbia and nicest guy in the fucking world. What?
You've met him?
Not him. He's a great, I mean, he's a busy man, but he's a great guy, and I know of him, and everyone speaks highly of him, and I respect him. I'm a fucking professor at a fucking Ivy League school. Yeah, I respect it. Her husband before that, very intelligent guy. He spends Christmases with us. He's French Canadian. He comes down.
Now you're better, man.
They have a daughter together. But the thing is, I mean, they had to win my trust too. You know, he had to win my trust. She had to win my trust. I had to win their trust. But it's just like, yeah, I'm open to it, assuming we're good.
Well, yeah, if it's gonna work out.
Yeah, and it did.
But that's why.
And he's a good guy.
I stopped dating women with kids because I end up running into the damn exes.
I hear
And
it.
it's to me that's a weird dynamic, and that sometimes I look at myself and I think about, hey, maybe I'm just not like I need to fucking mature or something.
No.
So I like hearing you
There's
say
nothing
that.
wrong. There's nothing wrong with that. I couldn't have done that, you know, when I was, you know, in my 30s or whatever. But I don't know, we age, and plus with Karen, it's just I don't know. I trust her, and with her ex.
It's easier.
Yeah, it is. It really is. You know, there are little bumps along the way, but we've just grown to like. And I love the guy. I love him. And you know, like he lived with us for like a year, and I love him to death.
Holy fuck, dude! Really?
Yeah, because he's French Canadian, but he's also American, and he was working in New York City, and he was working on his master's while he was, I don't know, setting a play, or no, he was writing a script he'd been asked to rewrite a script for a movie in Hollywood and shit, and so he was living with us. It just worked out. Plus, they share a daughter. They share two daughters together.
Okay.
One biological, one non-biological. So he's really a part of the family.
Not judging. I'm actually looking up to you.
Yeah.
That you can handle that.
Oh, I don't know.
It's tough for me.
Anybody could, you know, but if you can trust the people you're with, and Karen I have absolute trust in her, and I trust fully, absolutely.
So how did you meet her? Don't mind.
Online. Okay, so this gets back to the notion of forcing it, inspired action, going up to the girl.
Sure.
Okay, that didn't mean I became reclusive just because I stopped approaching girls. But for me, dating online was a safe, easy, fun way to meet women. And it's like, I was totally down with that. I was living out in the Bay Area, and she lived here, and I just said, well, you know, Bay Area women are great and everything, and California women, but I expanded my search to the entire United States, and I was going to go global after that point, because I can move my business anywhere.
Yeah, me too.
Because there's, back then it wasn't Zoom, back then it was Skype and phone and so forth, and I just happened to meet this one, and it was great, and we hit it off.
How do you date? If you're across the fucking country.
Well, actually, can I open a window?
Yeah, go
Is that
ahead.
okay? I get a little warm in the afternoon sun here. There we go. Get some.
You're hiring what you got, dude. You get fucking fired up.
Yeah, and I got a fucking sweater on, a t-shirt underneath.
Yeah,
so
me too.
I wasn't thinking in a warm room. So we just said, I was ready to go, and she had her company here. I knew I could move to my company. So we said, let's just go on 2-week contracts. So we met, and basically right away, within like a month, because we've both been through marriages. I've been married twice.
Yeah.
We knew we weren't getting married, so we just said, let's take it for a spin. We'll go on a 2-week contract. 2 weeks from now, we'll say, hey, do we still want to be together? So we kept doing the 2-week renewals. Then it bumped to a month renewals, and now there are no renewals, except when, you know, she's really pissed at me. She says, aren't we due to look at a contract renewal sometimes?
Got yourself in the
That's
foot.
it. Bad idea. But no, so it's been good. But there's all, with us at our age especially, you know, she's 58, I'm 54. And so at our age, it's just like, when it doesn't, coming into the relationship. And my second wife, she said this to me originally. This was the first time I heard it. She said, I have no problems with you leaving. If the relationship ends, there's nothing wrong with that. You know, relationships end. Just please have the decency, the courtesy to let me know before you step out of the relationship. That's all I ask. Which is nice.
That's fair.
And it allows for the fact that sometimes relationships end. And that's what Karen and I have. And neither of us has wanted to end it yet. So that's 8 years. And then that is the longest adult relationship with a woman that I've had. And so it's good. And, we fight and so forth. But the thing I love the most about her is she can apologize and mean it. She can forgive and mean it.
Rare.
And she likes to talk out the problem. She likes to talk shit out. Once, we had a little bicker this morning. We were bickering over the eggs and making the eggs here at the house and that we're taking care of for her sister. And bickering, and I'm like, fuck this. And I went up, laid down in the bedroom and was just, resting a bit. And she shouts up after like 10 minutes, she shouts up, she says, Sven. And I just ignored her. She says, Sven, there's someone here to see you. I looked out the window, there's no cars out there. It's like, she's full of shit. I just let it go. And like 3 minutes later, she's like, Sven, come down here. There's someone here to see you. I said, well, who the fuck is it? And she says, it's me. So I'm like, all right. So I came down and we talked it out. I mean,
it's awesome when you don't have to. In my relationships, I always felt like I was the one that was having to bring down the friends. I never found anybody that was.
Yes. And I actually talk about that in one of my books, whichever one. This notion of, when we escalate, are you the one that's always de-escalating first? Are you the one that's always going to the other person saying, hey, gee, I shouldn't have done this? And I realized in previous relationships, I was always that person. And to the detriment of myself and to the relationship, it's like, no, they need to own their shit too. And I'm almost letting them off the hook.
Yeah,
there's got to be parity.
Indeed, and that's the perfect situation. I've yet to experience that yet, but there is definitely a lot of wisdom, and I need this. I need to be able to just say to you, hey, I'm sorry I did this. I know I fucked this up. And if I had it to do again, I wouldn't do it that way. And that's that. Not for a response, but just to say, like you talked about.
For sure, owning your shit. Absolutely.
And telling or writing a letter or whatever. It isn't about their response. It's about you saying it.
Yeah, that's right.
And for me, that's huge. To be able to say, hey, I know I covered my shit.
That's right. That's right.
It'd be nice if you were to.
Well, well, I agree with you. I agree with you, Travis. And really, and this is something I've only really incorporated into my counseling in the last 6 or 7 years. And that is the beauty. I've really had my eyes opened on this. The beauty of putting your truth out there, whether it's apologizing or I had a client just yesterday saying, I had this date with this person and I really wanted to tell this person that I was into them, but I didn't. I held back, whatever. And she said, I was just scared to. And I said, I totally understand that. We've all been there, not a big deal. But the other side of it is this. The beauty of telling your truth, just putting out there whatever you feel, is we see very quickly who that person is. So if I put out there, sweetheart, I'm sorry, I hurt you, I wronged you, and that's not, either they're going to say something like, in the full truth, not withholding any truth. Because if I'm withholding truth, are they responding to this? Are they responding to what I'm not? You're not getting a full read, but if I just put my full truth out there, no, all I got to do is watch you. Yep. If you respond with, are you fucking kidding me, dude? No, I hurt you. I'm sorry I hurt you, sweetheart. And then it's like, thank you, you just showed me who you are. Yep. If they respond with, yeah, you're right, you did, you jerked on what, thank you, you just showed me who you are. Right, and so, but you won't get a clear read if you're not putting your actual full truth out there.
Yeah, if you open up with, I'm sorry I got upset when you were such an asshole to me.
Right.
That's not a real,
that's right.
a real thing, yeah.
Or, or I'm sorry. And without going into what I'm sorry for, an actual apology or whatever it might be. But when we put our full truth out there, then it's beautiful. I just watch and see who the other person is. But the real challenge for a lot of people is when they put it out there and I see who the other person is, no, well, I'll just keep trying with this person anyway.
So you're exactly right, and that's exactly what happens. And that's for other reasons that are inside
of course.
that are there. We're digging into psychology, which I'm a huge fucking fan of. You don't have a background in that. Your degrees are
not at all.
My degrees are in education. We're both fascinated by psychology. How do you become a counselor when you don't have any of the boxes?
I'm a spiritual counselor. I'm a spiritual counselor. I deal only with soul matters. You'll never hear me say the word bipolar, or not because I look down on it, just the opposite. I have immense respect for psychology, but I just stay in my fucking lane. And the only reason you ever hear me use the word, like narcissist, is because every goddamn person thinks.
They slap it around.
Oh my God! And the other reason I use the word narcissist is because I studied ancient Greek in college and I studied Koine Greek in graduate school, so I know the origins of the story of Narcissus and Echo and all that. And it's a brilliant story, and it really tells a lot about relationships nowadays. But that's a separate fucking issue.
Everybody thinks if somebody's a dick to them, that's a narcissist.
Exactly.
You know how rare narcissists are?
Well, exactly.
They're incredibly fucking
well, and on top of it, people who specialize in this get bachelor's degree and medical school and residency. They misdiagnose narcissists. They misdiagnosed bipolar, but you were looking up on fucking Wikipedia or WebMD, or Mayo Clinic, and now you're a fucking expert. It's like, fuck off. Just lighten up.
You're just mad at them.
Yeah, you're just mad. You just admit what it really is.
Yeah.
Right. Now, of course, there are those that are diagnosed with a lot. But back to your question. I grew up.
You were doing something else. You started doing this.
It's like the kid who grows up sitting at the dinner table of Bill Gates. You're going to know computers in and out. You may not ever make a career in it, but you're going to know. I grew up with a dad who was a pastor, but he was, if I'm really honest, I adore my father. He passed away at 92. My mom just passed away at 93. But he was a horrible listener. But my mom And he would talk a lot, but he was a horrible listener. But he was the kindest man in the entire world. But my mom was this deep listener, deep questioner. And so I was learning it from her. Plus, by the time I'm 13-ish, basically all my siblings are gone because I was the youngest. And it's just the three of us around the dinner table where it used to be 8 people. And my mom, just as she had basically raised me as a girl, as a girl would be raised in the 70s. And, so she taught me to iron and sew and all this. Well, even pre-Bee Gees, anyway, and all that shit. So now I'm in junior high. She gets me started on journaling. She's just teaching me she's just downloading everything into me. And she was also a crisis counselor, a suicide prevention counselor and a crisis counselor. She had been counseling people, spiritual counseling for years and years and years, and she just started teaching me everything. So Dad would say something, and Mom would turn to me and say, Sven, what would be an active listening technique response? What would be a passive listening technique response? Sven, what was his primary point? He just talked for 5 minutes.
Holy shit.
Yeah, I did, but it was fun. It was fun. And, and those are the rudiments, active versus passive and stuff like that. But she was teaching it to me at 13. It was like a whole new fucking world. So I grew up just doing this. I never thought I'd be a counselor of any sort. But then in my 20s, I decided to become a pastor. Why? Because I could speak, write, and counsel. Those are the 3 things I wanted to do most, speak, write, and counsel. So I became a pastor. That's why I stayed with it. I figured that was the only career where I could do all 3 of those things. And a freak chance occurrence happened that led me to my first client, that brought my first client to me, who was a Wall Street guy. And then just over time, there was 1 more, then 2 more of those, and that's how I ended up, with even when I was living on the West Coast, with financier type clients, CEO type clients. It was total fluke that I was able to heal one in part because of who I am, and these are people who wouldn't be caught dead in a therapist's fucking office, right. But they can talk to me because I'm just me. Yeah. Right, the intensity and all that shit, but I also get the fucking results. And so that just sort of grew by chance. And so the whole counseling thing, it's what I was raised in, and it just sort of blossomed. It happened. And I enjoy it. And I
talk to people, shit, that's
and most importantly, that I can listen. That I know how to fucking listen. You'd never guess it from this fucking interview, but
I was thinking that, but I wasn't going to say it out loud.
I know you were thinking that. That's all right. And you were justified in thinking this.
I'm here to see you.
Well, I appreciate that. Very gracious. But no, it's listening, yes, but most importantly, it's what my mom taught me. The power of the right question at the right time. Deep questions, the right question, the right time, and the beauty of my getting my ass kicked by life in my 20s, losing my wife, losing my kids, losing a second wife, and all this shit, and losing massive career failures and all this shit. The beauty of it is it grew in me sort of a mix of fearlessness, sort of a mix of fuck off, and sort of a mix of I don't care. And I ask questions that other people would be terrified to ask, that other therapists don't ask. And so many people are in therapy, but their therapists aren't questioning them. And I can pull it off because every single one of my clients knows that I love them. Every single one of my clients. And I fall in love with the spirit of who they are, male or female, old or young. And so in that context of love, I can hammer the shit out of them. I had a woman tell me on TikTok lately, someone commented, she said, and I read as many of the comments as I can. I try to respond to folks and help them out. And she said, well, thank you. She said, Sven, why do I always feel like with you, I'm getting a bear hug while being punched in the face?
You need to knit that into a pillow.
Right, exactly. Welcome to my happy home. Bear hugs and many punches in the face. Yeah. So anyway, let me ask you though, what is it for you that, what's sort of the prime directive that keeps you, that has you doing the things that you're doing, your fingers in several different pies?
Well, I spent that decade as a teacher, really enjoyed it, and got back into coaching the last 3-4 years. Right. Thanks, man. Got to have more of that contact that I like doing, which is like you're talking about. I was able to lead and inspire and motivate, and that's really important to me. I spent my youth trying to become that. My dad was that for me.
Beautiful.
And I wanted to follow in his footsteps. He was a teacher, like I told you, he coached, and I became all these things, and he was a motivator to me, and I looked up to him, and he was a hero and a role model, and I wanted to be that, so I became that. And for a while there, I wasn't because of some job stuff, and then my business started doing well. I'm like, shit, I got time like crazy, and I got some money, so I'm going to go back into coaching, which I did.
Brilliant.
And that's been fun, but recently the coaching thing has exploded, and I've got exploded in a bad way. But
I'm sorry.
That's all right, man. It's totally cool. The head coach, who I'm very close friends with, he's going to go back to Virginia, where he's from, and so the staff is kind of going to jokes, the 4 wins, which is no big deal. But this thing, I don't know, man. I wanted to see if I could write a book.
And you did.
So I fucking did it.
2.
I got a second one now, yeah. So I wrote a book, and my publisher keeps saying, you need to push it, you need to support it, you need to do a blog and all this stuff. I'm like, man, it sounds terrible, but I love Joe Rogan. What if I do a podcast? So I was fucking learn how to do a podcast. So I just started doing it, and that kind of took a different angle. Like, my first book is about how to get through very difficult shit. You talked about a little bit about your background, but in 2012 for me, it was got divorced, got arrested, went to jail, lost my teaching career, all in about a 2-week span.
Wow.
And so I created this process to get myself out of that.
Yeah.
And once I was successful, I was always wanted to write a book, and I thought, well, I'll write about how I did that. So I did this point system. And anyway, that's how I wrote the book, and I started the podcast. Podcast kind of took a different angle, and I was all about chapter 4 in the book instead of about the whole book. And so now the second book is basically more about that, more about the masculinity piece. Chapter 4 was called Volunteer, and I talk about coaching football. You know, what I'm telling you, develop young men and be a role model, be a hero. And I get really fired up about that, about how I feel like the school systems aren't as supportive of boys becoming men like they used to be. So
why was the 2-week sequence of events in 2012 the absolute greatest blessing of your life? Why was that necessary?
Oh man,
horrific as it was.
Yeah.
And you don't have to go into embarrassing details.
Sure.
But overall, you know, I don't want you to, you know, I don't want to pry into your personal life, but overall, why was that necessary for the full expression and expansion of your soul and who you really are? Why did that have to happen?
That's exactly what you're talking about. Once you go through the difficult shit, you know, I tell my friends this all the time. I try to tell high school kids this. They don't understand it when you tell them, but maybe when they're 25, they will. That failure is fucking awesome because now you don't have to worry about failing. It's like you got an 8-0 team, and all of a sudden you're 8-1. Well, at 8-0, all you're worried about is not losing.
Right.
That's different than trying to win.
Right.
It's different. And then you get that loss, and you're like, fuck, that's a relief.
Right.
Now my life isn't perfect. It's not going to be perfect. It never will be again. So I can do all kinds of cool shit now because I failed. It wasn't that bad, right? And if I fail again, so what? So I'm going to try to do some cool shit. Might as well.
Wow.
Fuck it, I'll write a book.
Wow.
Fuck it, I'll start this business. Fuck it, I'll do this. I built my cabin up north myself. I did all these cool things.
Wow.
And this after failing. You know, you make this massive fail. I'm going to get a motorcycle endorsement. Learn how to ride a motorcycle.
Wow.
Really spend a lot more time playing guitar. And I'm going to. Why not? Fuck it. You know, you already fucked up. You fuck up again, nobody's going to care.
Well, and the beauty of that, I like what you're saying. So I did this and I did that and the cabin and the motorcycle and all this stuff. That you've fundamentally been building, you know, what I talk about in the book, the Diamonds List, but you've been saying, well, who am I? What would feel good to me? To at least try.
Yep.
Even if I don't like it, I've always wanted to try, you know, whatever, wakeboarding, whatever.
Yep.
And trying those things. And so we build our own joy. Rather than so often the way we're programmed is, well, the money will make me happy, or if I have this relationship, then I'll be happy. The external things versus what do I enjoy doing? How do I enjoy spending my time? What do I enjoy being? And so then when people cross our paths, women or friends or what have you, it's what they're seeing is the authentic me, or the fully expanded me.
Right.
You know, an acorn is still an oak tree. But boy, when it becomes that full-grown, oh, that's what you are, right?
Yeah.
So it was in you. So now that you're expressing, go ahead.
Yeah, and that's all. That's it. I mean, I recommend failure to everybody.
Yeah.
It's the best thing that could ever happen to you.
Right.
The bigger the failure, the better. As long as you still got both arms and both legs
You're
and
right.
shit like that, you come out of it. It is going to make you better. And the earlier you do it, the better. I used to tell teachers this. I'd rather have them fuck up when they're 14 in my classroom
Right.
than never fuck up, and then now they're doing it at 25 when the stakes are a lot higher.
Amen. Amen to that. Amen. And that's the approach I take with regard to my own kids and when they were young and dating, you know, when they're teenagers, date now. I want them to have the experience of falling in love, get their heart broken, or the rush of holding hands for the first time or the first kiss and losing the person or having to break up with someone that you love but you just don't want to be with, and blah, blah, blah. All those experiences now so that when you move to San Diego after college at age 23 and you're starting your first job, you're not getting your heart broken for the first time.
And now your job goes down to
Exactly. The whole life
was shit.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Yeah.
I wish people thought about that shit more, but it's just not popular. I've tried like hell. I put out, once a week I put out a little email blast to all the superintendents and principals in Michigan. a bunch of college education professors all over the country.
Wow.
And I'll give some kind of quote about how, boys are 50% of your population, but they're 75 to 80% of your, discipline referrals. Just quotes on this is what happens with a fatherless home. There's so damn many of them. And hey, I'll come in and teach you how to, in your classroom, make a situation where boys are going to be more engaged. Let's bring in competition. Let's bring in risk taking. Let's bring in some of these things that are natural male things, and nobody. They'll help girls too, of course, but nobody wants to hear that. And I think the reason that they don't is the reason that they should, and that's that they're just afraid. School districts, all of them. I remember what it was like to be a teacher, and I was afraid every day that I was going to say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing, and I was going to get fired. And I was afraid of that every day. And I think everybody in education is that way. They're afraid of it. But you got to bring some toughness in there. You can't always be about people's feelings and try not to hurt people's feelings. You got to teach them to be adults. Adults, it's fucking hard. There's a lot of difficult things that you've got to go through.
Well, good for you for having a vision you believe in and hustling and putting it out there.
Yeah.
Even though in your own eyes it's not succeeding, it's not going anywhere. They're not bringing it in.
Yeah, exactly. But if my book were to blow up or something, the next one blows up or something, all of a sudden they're gonna be like, "Oh, that's that guy's been emailing.
Right.
We should call him."
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, and here's the thing with regard to that, and this is a little part of my story that is so funny. I was writing all these fucking books, nobody's reading them. I'm writing all these fucking books, and I ended up landing. I got lucky, and I landed the top literary agency in the country for my book just before this one, and ended up not getting made publishers vomit, not because it was bad. The agent, they don't take on books unless they believe in it.
No, I know that. Man.
Yeah.
You gotta have like 50,000 followers. They don't want you.
Right, and back then it wasn't even about followers. That was back 2010. Whatever. That notion didn't really. Right. But no, you gotta have a platform of some type. When you submit your
already famous,
right, or your professor and blah blah blah. Yes, you have to have a platform. And anyway, but it made them vomit because of the contents. And it was about female infidelity. The book was about female infidelity. And nobody wants to discuss
What's it called?
I Steal Wives.
No, shit.
Yeah. Anyway, and you can get it, but only my agency, they themselves decided to publish it as an ebook. So it's out there. You can get it, and you can get it on my website. But the point is this. I was writing all these fucking books that nobody was reading, and I just kept writing because I had something to say. Then, by chance, well, it was mine. Yeah, it was my voice and saying what I want to say and so forth. And then, quite randomly, Karen, my girlfriend, tells me to get on fucking TikTok. I'd already been on Instagram and YouTube for years, a decade or more, decade and a half, whatever. And I'm like, fuck TikTok. I don't fucking dance. I don't even know what TikTok is. Fuck that shit. And she said, just don't be a dumbass. She downloaded it one night. We're laying in bed looking at it. There's this little monkey that opens up packages and eats food. And I'm like, that's fucking funny. And then I thought,
I got 1.2 million views.
Well, now it's probably even way more than that. I think that monkey died, though. I think there's another one. But anyway, the point is, tough life.
Yeah.
But the point is, I'm like, fuck, I'm used to doing like long form, like 30 minutes, or even like on Instagram or Facebook, there would have to be, in order to be able to send it out to people, it would have to be like 5 minutes or some shit. But doing it in 59 seconds, because, TikTok is 1 minute, but really it's 59 seconds, I always say, because by the time it reads a minute, it's cut off my last one from have a kick-ass day to have a kick-ass. Right. It loses its punch.
I know what you're talking about.
Okay. But I did a few, and then it took off, and and then it went huge, and now the books sell.
So
there's no fucking way I knew those books would ever sell, but I kept writing them, and now, so I got everybody gets on TikTok, wants to get big, and then I'll come up with a product. I already had all the fucking products. I had all the courses. I had everything.
I just did my podcasts are 30 minutes long. Like this one will be longer than that, but I'll cut up little clips and put them on TikTok.
Yeah.
I just did a podcast on the same thing about how you have to have your base right. If you want to build at least that kind of side hustle, you have to have your ceilings eliminated and something in place to catch the money. Essentially.
Right.
So I made the website and I did all this shit so that if it does pop, I don't have to build that after the fact.
Well, and it's funny you say that. That's exactly right. And some people don't have anything. They don't have substance. They don't have content that people would want. They can shake their ass, and I'm all for people shaking their ass.
Make them a bad person.
God bless you. I'll watch. But Karen and I were having this conversation, and again, she's just a killer business person. And she said, Sven, one of the mistakes I made in my business, and her business just fucking exploded. Then in 08, she took the garment industry took a thrashing. She's in the fashion garment industry. And, you look at anybody's closet and they have clothes that her company has designed and manufactured. And she said, Sven, the biggest mistake I made is I was so focused on the front end on bringing in business because she was a natural salesperson and she was bringing in. She's a private label design, so she does for all the companies out there. Everyone in the mall, she's made clothing for, designed and made clothing for.
When you're in sales, you think like that.
That's right. She said, but I wasn't focusing enough on the back end. She said I should have had, once I went to outsourcing, she used to own her own factories, then she started outsourcing her factories. I should have had, multiple ones rather than just having one or two, because then I could have taken on more clients. And she says, so with you, Sven, you need to write yet another book. You need to have more courses. Because I've told her there's like 3, 4 more courses that I know I could do. It's just, I'm not inspired. And see, this is where we get back to. Travis. This notion of, do you walk across the bar and ask the girl out, knowing that it's coming from a place of anxiety. I have a lot of anxiety. It's fear and it's everything else.
Yeah, you're not going to present well.
Or do you just let it go? And so for me, with the courses, and Karen and I talk about this, the more courses I have, and I have another couple of books that I know I could write, but they're not holding my attention yet. And if it doesn't hold my attention, I know it's going to be a grind to get through.
Exactly.
And then I'm doing it for the success and not and the more money. Gee, then people buy more of my books. And yes, it'll help you because I know I have good content. But it's not the same. All of my books I wrote because I was inspired. All my courses I made because it inspired me. All my counseling clients, if it doesn't feel right, I'll abort a client. If they're wasting my time, jacking me around, I'll abort a client. Everything I do is because I'm inspired to fucking do it. And so for those things right now, even though, yes, I know based on her wisdom, I should have more back-end stuff. Even though I got a ton right now, I should have more. It's like, it doesn't feel right yet. It does, and everybody, how many fucking people tell me, so hey, you have a podcast, you should do a podcast.
Well, if you're not fired up about it, shit, you can't do it.
Well, and here's the thing.
I know exactly what you're saying.
Well, yeah, and it's just like, yeah. And so her ex-husband, the one I was telling you about, he was a sound guy, being in theater all those years, and he set me up with all the equipment to do a podcast, at my house and all this shit. And I just didn't pull the trigger on it. I did like a couple of TikTok lives. And the truth is, if I were going to do it, I'd just do TikTok lives, and then tell people when it's going to be. All I have to have is my fucking phone right in front of me. People can give me their fucking questions right there. Yeah. And then I can post that shit to my website and there's the fucking podcast.
So you're wondering where it fits.
Well, what it really is I just don't feel inspired yet. I lift my oars. When it's inspired, when I see that over there that I know I want to go to,
what's your best idea about it? Like if you were going to do a podcast, it would be what? What would you do?
Just honestly, for me personally, it would be basically the TV show Frasier. I'm just sitting at my fucking desk taking calls.
Oh shit.
Yeah, and because
idea, dude. I wonder why that popped into your head as being.
Oh no, we've talked about it before. I'd love to say that was spontaneous right now. Karen and I, that's what we've talked about before. Okay. Simply because that would be the most fun for me, just solving people's problems on the fly. And the couple of TikTok lives that I did, they're actually on my website. I'm taking people's issues. I let it go too long. I need to cut it down to like 5 minutes per person or whatever. But the bottom line is that's the fun for me. Is it's sort of It's like the it sounds a bit pretentious, but it's like the chess master, the 20-year-old prodigy chess master who has 18 people at chessboards playing him, and he's playing 18 games at one time. That's for me what it is. I've just been doing it so long.
So it's because it is a challenge, or because it isn't?
Because it is. Okay. Because I would enjoy the challenge of it. I would enjoy testing my mind. It would be fun for me. And if it's not fun for me, I don't do anything. Yeah, I don't do anything. And so for me personally, that's all it would be. It's just doing what I can to help as many people. But like my high school wrestling coach used to say, he would take us from our high school down to the University of Minnesota to watch the Gophers wrestling on Sundays or whatever. He says, you learn by watching. Well, you also learn by listening. And so by listening to someone else's problems and Sven interacting with that person or Travis interacting with that person, and you, as the great writer C.S. Lewis wrote, he wrote Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe and Chronicles of Narnia and all that shit. He said, we read to know that we're not alone.
In our humanness, not just alone, period, but we have other people who've experienced what I'm experiencing.
Precisely. And so it's the same with the podcast. It's the same with, anything is to hear someone else's problems, what they're going through. I can see myself in that. They talk about it in theater. There's that great quote from theater, and I know nothing about theater, but I love this quote, and that is, the mark of great theater is seeing yourself on stage. Seeing in one of the characters, basically, someone that I once was, that I am, or that I aspire. Exactly, and you connect with that. And so it's the same way with you. You have people who connect to you. They see something in you they want to be like, or they were like, or they learn about your problems, and it helps them in their own lives.
Or it turns them on. Like you were talking about when you start to become your authentic self, and closest I have to that is this pursuit I have here. And I've seen some of my friends kind of feel away, family members.
Yep.
And I think that they're like, thinking, well, maybe I could have done that and I didn't, or I can't believe he's saying those things, or
Right.
whatever it might be. But yeah, I know what you're saying.
Well, and that it's interesting you bring that up because that's sort of, for me, that was sort of when I knew I had accomplished my dreams. You know, when I was a kid, I didn't aspire to wealth. It never
I
held.
still don't.
And for me, but my one sort of thing that was for me was I wanted to be famous. I wanted to be famous, all right? So I'm really honest. And I wanted greatness, all right? And the beauty of so much failure extended over such a long time, like decades for me, is it sort of bleeds that out of you. It's like, all right,
Well,
great.
you're maturing too. And I think, know what I know about you, this is one of the things that I connected on. You said that, you know, people said that don't compliment Sven because
He'll get a big head, right?
That was me for sure.
Oh, yeah.
I still get that.
Yeah.
Actually, my friend Aaron will say that to me. I'm not going to fucking give you any compliments because your head will just get too big.
Right.
And I think that mentality connects to that wanting to be famous thing.
Oh,
I
for
give
sure.
a shit about the money.
Oh, for
but
sure.
I want to feel like there's some kind of a victory there.
I want the positive attention that I never got.
Exactly.
That I was the braggart, and the child's soul needs to hear that he's good, that he's great. And so if no one else is going to say it, I'm going to say it. So ironically, the kid who most needs to hear that he's good and he's great, and attaboy, is the one you least want to give it to because he's a peckerhead braggart, and that was me. But when I realized that I had sort of made it for myself is when it happened a couple of times, maybe in my 20s, but in 30s, but then by late 30s and into my 40s, when old friends, even some family members, very old friends, would call me up and say, "Hey Sven, you got a minute?" And it would come to me. There's that old quote, and I won't say who said it, but there's that old quote: "A prophet is not without honor except in his own country." In other words, if you're a prophet, you'll get honor, just not in your own fucking country. Because that's not, you know, big shot.
That's jackass.
That's dipshit that used to have glasses and we used to kick the shit out of that little fucker. You know, okay, but if you win over those people, if they start coming
so
to
you make it somewhere else and then you come back.
Yeah, I had a very dear old friend who had
How
become.
long did that take?
Well, like I said, it was probably it's fine. It was probably late 30s, early 40s for me.
You've been in it for how long before they started coming back?
Well, I was always, anybody who knows me from my younger years, I was a freak. I was weird, and I was allowed to be weird, allowed to be different. But I really started going my own path at age 19. My deliberate spiritual life started at 19, where I began to just listen to my own voice. I didn't know that's what I was doing, and just do it. And I was weird, and I was poor. And people don't like poor.
Yeah.
And I come from working class, blue collar, but also 2, 3, 4-star general, shit like that. And all this, so it was this odd juxtaposition, but people don't like poor. And fuck, I was a fucking pastor, but even then when I was living on the street and shit, or whatever, it's just like, people don't want it, and that was fine. At that point, I didn't give a shit. But then, in the subsequent years, even long before I became, you know, popular on TikTok, long before that, you know, I'd get the occasional call, or I'd get the, "Hey Sven, I'm due to give a speech. And what do? I don't know what I should say." Yeah, or, you know, "Sven, my wife and I are going through a divorce," and I just, and you also get to know people. You know, you've got that sort of sales mentality, or just the gregarious personality. So I got to know people, and so I couldn't even tell you how many cops I've counseled where I get a call in the middle of the night. "Sven, I got my bottle of Jack in one hand, I got my service revolver in the other hand." Yeah, and so.
It's how cool that they fucking call you.
And I'm humbled.
What a fucking compliment.
Well, and it's humbling, and you realize also you take your work very seriously.
You sure do.
Absolutely, but the point is, all of life prepares you for that. And the fact, you know, I've got 8, 9-inch scars running up my fucking arms from when I committed suicide.
When was that?
That was in 2001, I believe.
And what was going on in your life?
I lost everything. I'd been kicked out of the church 3 times, denied ministry. My wife had walked away from, or the woman who would later become my second wife. Oh, okay. She had left me. My first wife had stripped me of my kids, been pouring poison in their ears about me for years. I'd lost everything.
Sorry.
Oh, no. It ended up, that was the pivotal moment of my life. That was when New Sven really began, and the old me died. So I say I committed suicide. I don't say I attempted suicide, because the old me died, and I realized that I needed to make my grand revelation. I'm bleeding out my fucking arms. I'm sitting at the foot of the Berkeley Pier looking out at Golden Gate Bridge. I'm going to die a beautiful death. Dave Matthews playing. I'm journaling, fucking blood everywhere in the car, journaling, because I always journal. And then about 45 minutes later, I'm like, I started laughing. Not because I'm lightheaded, but it's like, I'm not dying. I don't feel any more dead than I did 45 minutes ago. And I admitted to myself, I said, the truth is I want to live, but if I'm going to live, that means I'm going to have to make different decisions. That was my grand revelation.
Well, but you face down death, and that's going to make you look at things differently.
Well, it does.
And I want to make different decisions. That's just the beginning of a long fucking road.
Exactly. And it was, but then it was about, I'll say 7 years later-ish. And I was living in my car on the streets in the depths of a Minnesota winter and ministering to homeless people and living in my own car. Minnesota winter. So it's getting down 50 below wind chill at night and I'm living in my fucking car. Fuck. How people live on the streets without a fucking car in winters in those northern states like Michigan, Minnesota. Oh, fuck. I could never do that.
Let alone the fucking concrete, dude. I'm 45 and my back is fucked.
Well, yeah, and that's a separate issue when I was sleeping on concrete. Right. No, I hear it. But anyway, my point was, and about 6 years later, I could feel my life changing over time. But that one morning, I remember I was at Caribou Coffee on Washington Avenue in Minneapolis, and I bought myself a mocha, and I was doing my daily journaling, and all of a sudden I started laughing. And it hit me. And I grew up in a good home, very good home, and a lot of love and all that, but it hit me in that moment. I have never been happier in my entire life than right now. Living in my car, free, and I had finally gotten all the baggage, all the pain, all the bullshit. I'd done all my inner work for so long, taught myself. I didn't have anybody teaching me. I didn't have a Jordan Peterson or a Sven Erlandson or whatever. And I figured it out for myself, which was its own blessing, because now I can teach that. And I know that every single fucking word that comes out of my mouth, I tried in my own life, and I know it works. When I recommend the Sedona method to people, I know because it fucking works. When I recommend Living in the Light by Shakti Gawain, I know the truth of that. That is one of my Bibles. This isn't book shit. This is shit that got me out of fucking suicide, moved me on with my life. Or so when I got that cop on the fucking phone, he's got the JD and he's got the service revolver. I literally say, I have been where you are. Different reasons that God is there. I have been. And that's just like, I hate to say it, but it's fucking street cred. It's fucking street cred. So all the shit, all the failures, all the successes, all the humiliations, all of it was preparation for me to be who I am most fully as that full-grown oak. And just being who the fuck I am. And I fail, and I make mistakes still. It's not that I'm...
Yeah, it's fine.
Right, but I'm doing what I love, and I'm being what I love.
I tell people as often as I can that the failures, if you're not failing, try not fucking trying.
Well, that's exactly right. That's it.
And
that was actually the other thing I wanted to bring up when we were talking about failure before. One of the questions I like to ask people is, what was Michael Jordan, arguably the greatest or one of the top 3 greatest, Bill Russell.
I don't think it's arguable.
LeBron. I don't either, but
I
think he's the greatest. But I was never a basketball guy, right? I was football and wrestling. But anyway, what was Michael Jordan's Major League Baseball batting average?
I have no idea. Well, no, maybe he was in the AAA or something, right?
He didn't have a Major League Baseball batting average because he was in AA and he quit. And one of the big things that I've been combating since way back when I was an NCAA strength coach was this notion of Lombardi's bullshit notion that winners never quit and quitters never win. Bullshit! What is fucking Wayne Gretzky, the greatest hockey player of all time, maybe Gordie Howe.
Coaching for a minute, didn't he?
The Coyotes, 5 years, sub 500 winning average, and he quit.
Yeah,
the smart people, you quit when it doesn't feel good anymore. Not just because I'm not succeeding, but if it doesn't feel good, if you don't quit, why the fuck are you doing it?
Yeah, you're forcing it. That's going to ask.
Exactly. And so what I'm an advocate of, you step up to that buffet of life and you try everything at the buffet until you find the 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 things that you want to make a meal out of, you want to make a career out of, that you want to make a life out of. But if you don't have the courage to quit, do you know how many fucking college girls I've counseled over the years who are keeping 25 balls up in the air because they're not allowed to quit? And then they either keep doing it to their own, run themselves into the ground, they start binging and purging, they do something, or they'll either burn out, or the other direction that girls have been taught, you have to succeed, you have to succeed. The other direction they'll go is they won't try anything unless they absolutely know they can succeed at it. Well, let me ask you, what do you know that you can absolutely succeed at in advance? Nobody gets that guarantee. And so they become afraid to even try. That's girls, that's boys. I'm just saying I work with a lot of females and so forth. So you have to have the willingness to quit. You absolutely, that success and joy in life is predicated on the willingness to quit. And if you don't have the willingness to quit, you're never going to fucking succeed. Because the truth is, when you're doing the shit you love, you won't want to quit. Yeah. You'll work so fucking hard. When I'm writing my books, I don't know how you write yours. I don't write, well, generally I am writing every day, but I'm up at about 3 or 4 in the morning. Some days I'll only write 4 or 5 hours. There'll be days where I'll write till literally 7 p.m. And I'll be exhausted, but I'll be jacked to wake up the next morning and do it again. I only write when I'm inspired. Yeah. I don't write every day. I haven't written in fucking years. Since I wrote my last book, I really, I sketch out a few things, but So anyway, that's I believe in inspiration.
I get it, and that you have to be. There's no doubt about that. Since you asked,
Yeah,
I'm a disciplined guy, so I'm an
and that's beautiful.
2 hours a day, and it's done.
And that's what right.
I gotta turn the page. That's how I do it.
And that's
what
what
the gym after that.
That's what most writers are that way, and I respect the hell out of that. And
I like how you're doing.
Well, and that's another author that a book that I really love. I get so many people asking me about journaling. Are there journaling prompts? And I talk about my book. Yes, I have journaling prompts in my book for the deep work. But as far as learning journaling, I recommend the book The Artist's Way, which was a huge international bestseller back in the '90s. Huge. And what she talks about in that book is what she calls the morning pages. Right, 3 pages every fucking day. No matter what it is, whether you feel like it, don't feel like it.
Don't edit it, just fucking let it out.
Just let it all out. And the other thing, when it comes to writing, when it comes to journaling, that I tell people is you're not trying to capture your thoughts, you're trying to release your emotions. At least for the work that I do, vis-a-vis.
I've heard it.
Right, bleeding through your pen, that's right. Whereas so many people think of journaling as, oh, the trees were really pretty today, and I want to remember this day because this was the day Tom proposed me. And nothing wrong with any of that, but the goal is to get the fucking shit out. Yeah, it's just...
You have 20 minutes before you...
What time is it?
4:23.
4:23. Yeah, we've got about 20.
Yeah.
That's great.
Let's, I'm gonna shut all this down and...
Sure.
Holy shit, dude!
That was fun.
That's fucking awesome.
Thank you.
Fuck's sake.
That was great.
Thanks for letting me fucking come out.
I respect your balls, man. Let me ask you, what, just out of curiosity, for you in your life, what's the biggest thing you're struggling with right now in your own life?
I don't know, man. I don't really struggle. I would tell you, if I have a struggle, it's lack of imagination. I can't think of what the next cool thing is that I'm going to do. I mean, like this obviously was a cool adventure, and I'll have to come up with the next one. You know what? I think it's going to be this. I'm going to buy an old farmhouse up in northern Michigan and rebuild it.
Why is that? What will you get from a farmhouse? You said you already have a cabin. What will you get from a farmhouse you won't get from a
Two
cabin?
things. So I own a house down by Detroit area, right? And
Yep.
the cabin's up here.
Down in the mitten.
You need to have a full-time home. My cabin's not that. It's too small. It doesn't have laundry, shit like that. So
Okay.
And I just don't want to be in the Detroit area anymore, man. I'm a country boy. I want to be out in the fucking rural farm fields. This driving around here, I mean, I'll do it because this is really cool.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm gonna take the train. These guys, those fishermen I was talking to, taught me how to get on the train and go into the city.
Oh, it's simple.
So I'm gonna do that.
It's so simple.
Never been to New York City. Gonna try that out.
Simple.
But I will be excited as hell to be out of, to leave and go back to the country. I want to be further away from people. I'm talking 20, 40 acres, old ass farmhouse.
Wow.
Building. Yes.
It's a lot of work.
Love it though, man. For me, that's fun. I've got tons of time. My business makes me plenty of money, and I don't have to really work that hard on it.
Wow. So as long as you have internet, you're good.
That's all I need.
Wow.
Yeah, that's it. That's what I'm struggling with is imagination.
And what's the struggle? I mean, so you have your vision for the next thing. So when you say you struggle with imagination, and you had said sort of thinking what's next. So that's one example of what's next. Do you really struggle with what's next? And if so, what's the struggle? Does I want it now and it's not coming?
No, it's more of an existential thing, man. Like I told you, I didn't have a family, so I don't have a thing, where I'm leaving something behind after I'm gone, so to speak, right? So that also is a driver for all of this stuff. I'll be, when I'm not here again, and when you hit your 40s, you start thinking about that. Oh shit, man, I might be half done, or more.
Yeah.
You start thinking about that, like, well, I don't want to be on my deathbed or fucking my Wednesday night bed, wondering did I do anything worth a shit in my life? You know what I mean? So that's the real driver here. The work that I do isn't fulfilling. I mean, it's cool. I give people jobs, and everybody's happy, and I make good money and all that.
Sure.
It isn't like coaching is, right? Where you're that feeling of winning, watching those boys. And once I get that house done and get all these things where I want them, I'll get back into football coaching. Sure. That'll be the end.
Well, and the irony, I think, of something like that, where you're fundamentally isolating yourself much more. I mean, think about the notion of finding a woman, so to speak.
Sure.
That to some degree, moving out in the country, it's like, well, aren't you decreasing your odds? But this is what this is what I believe.
Well, shit, man, you dated your woman halfway across the country.
Well, and that's just it,
you.
right? And that's just it. And the truth is, the more you're just authentic, being yourself, even if it means. And that's why I tell people, I'll have a female client who says, Sven, I just like staying home reading and having my cats. How am I ever going to? Everybody says I need to get out there, and so on. I say just the opposite. Stay home. Play with your cats and read your books. You want to know why? Because I've seen this so many times. In fact, I had one like 6 months ago that she was reading, and then she became part of an online book club during COVID. And one of the women in the book club had a brother, and who this woman needed something fixed at her house. Brother came over, and they became very good friends. Mm-hmm. But it turns out that brother a buddy of his had just gotten a divorce a year earlier, and this woman never left her fucking house. And so it's just like, the gods have a fucking sense of humor, man. If you're just being you, there are other people who are just being them that will effortlessly cross your path, and things will fucking flow. It's when we're not being ourselves.
And that already happens. I mean, I get, when you have any kind of public persona, people are gonna reach out to you. Mm-hmm. That's just the way it goes.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously question the authenticity of that, but in other ways you don't. You're like, well, I know that I'm not acting when I'm doing this stuff. I know really who I am. And the stuff that I wrote in that book, I didn't copy it from another book. Like, that's really me. You know what I mean? And if that's what drew you in, well, at least it's real.
Absolutely.
I mean? So that stuff comes my way. I don't know, man. I don't worry about that too much anymore.
That's great.
Really.
That's great.
I don't think I really had any struggles. I have a really cool fucking life, dude.
What's the biggest fear?
Whatever I want.
Which is amazing. But then the hard question is, well, what do I really want?
That's where the imagination comes in.
Right. And in a way, that question itself, if I'm having to come up with imagination, then maybe that's already my answer, and that is, I really want precisely where I am right now.
Yeah, maybe my imagination would in fact be paddling downstream, and I need to just roll where I got going.
Right, and enjoy, but the what's sort of implicit in you saying, well, what more do I want, implies that I want more, but I can't put a finger on what more I want.
Well, some of that, but also the idea that I really enjoy accomplishment, and I like challenges, and I like things that are difficult, and if I'm going to do a thing, I want it to be a fucking moonshot. I want to call somebody who's famous and say, dude, let me come over and fucking do a podcast with you. Probably say no, but you might say yes. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Same thing with doing this stuff and putting yourself out on the internet and writing books and stuff. To me, that's a moonshot. To me, that's exciting.
Right.
Because it holds that youthful possibility potential. It's an amazing thing. That's what I see when I see that spot. That's what she represents to me. Amazing. You never know where my life is going to go. I go talk to this person. And if it doesn't work out, I lost. Exactly where I was when I started. Right. So that's what it is. I'm just trying to find.
I love that, and the courage to swing for the fence, and that's where the fun is. Swinging for the fence.
Yeah, you probably want to prep for your shit.
That particular one doesn't require much prep. So I'm just gonna, while you're drinking water, I'll put water.
Thank you. I'm just gonna hammer my back and let that go outside.